What's up, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today I wanted to show you guys a cool new web app that I just built, and you can visit it right now at open-tunings.com. And what this website is it's a place for guitarists to discover new and alternate ways to tune your guitar. So to provide some context, if you're not a guitarist, guitars are usually tuned in a very specific way, and it's commonly referred to as E standard. And if you tune the guitar in a different way, it can just unlock a lot of new inspiring sounds and chords. And these are commonly referred to as open tunings, these popular different ways to tune your guitar. Pretty cool. So there's a few bugs already that I'm noticing, but the main functionality is here. Basically, I wanted to just create an app where you can just go and find a new tuning for your guitar. You can also view other people's submitted tunings, as well as create one via this cool create page. Give it a name. I have this cool random name generator. This is pretty fun to build. Basically, I have a list of 30 nouns and then or 30 adjectives and then around 30 nouns, and then this shuffle just picks a random noun, random adjective. And I have this cool little tags component where you can give it a tag. And this is a cool UX, still in development, but basically I'm using this chips component from this UI library called Skeleton, and I'll dive into a little bit more on that later. So the main technologies I used to build this were SvelteKit for the front end and back end. For those of you who don't know, SvelteKit is a full stack JavaScript framework for building web applications. And I chose this for many different reasons. The first is that I just absolutely fell in love with Svelte a few months ago after just trying it out via their online tutorial. And I've used every major framework on the market right now, from React, Next.js 13 to Angular. And after touching Svelte, it's pretty much impossible for me to touch anything else. And the main reason why I love it so much is that it just provides such a enjoyable development experience, and the amount of code that you need to write to perform very simple things is just 1/10 of the amount of code that you would need in the other major framework giants like React. So SvelteKit is for the front end and back end. And when I say back end, I mean that in SvelteKit you can define server API routes that don't get included within the client-side bundle. And the server routes that I have connect to MongoDB. So all of these tunings that you see here were submitted by people, and it's stored in a simple collection called user submitted tunings. And that's pretty much it. And I have a create route and a get route. And I'm using, in addition to MongoDB, I'm using Prisma, which is a really incredible lightweight ORM that works with TypeScript and Svelte and MongoDB. And for those of you who don't know what an ORM is, it stands for Object Relational Mapping. And what this does, it just allows you to communicate with your database in a much more human-friendly way, and writing aggregations and simple queries are just so much easier using Prisma. And it also provides incredible auto complete with the TypeScript language. And I'm not sure if I already talked about this, but for the way I'm able to produce all these sounds, I'm using a library called Tone.js, which just makes interacting with the native browser web APIs, web audio APIs, just infinitely easier. I can show you how this works. I created a simple service or a class called Note Player. And what this does is when it gets initialized, I load about 10 different audio files that I have stored locally. And these are specific notes, so I can show you each what I'm talking about. So if you open up the static folder and then the electric guitar preset, basically I provided a handful of notes. I named this a specific way. This is A with the played at the second octave. And what Tone.js does is you can just provide it these, you can even just give it one audio sample, and then it'll create a full 120 keyboard with just sampled from this one note. But if you provide it with a few more options to work with, it maps each one of these audio files to the closest key on the keyboard. So it just creates really cool instruments, and it just makes working with audio and the web so much easier. It's pretty sick. So also I have this simple like functionality, and what this does is that all it does is it stores a ID inside of the local storage on the browser. So for those of you who are new to web development, every major web browser has a thing called LocalStorage, and this is a key value collection that exists just in the browser, and meaning that when you refresh the page, it stays there. And what I do is I just save the ID from each one of these, from each of your liked tunings, and I'm storing it as I'm just appending it to this list of strings. And basically, right now I'm not doing anything with the likes other than showing it here, but I'm gonna have to add I would like to add a little place where you can view all of your liked tunings. But I didn't want to have any profile creation. Anyone can come here to the create page and there's no sign up required. I really wanted to avoid the whole authenticating a user. I think it's kind of pointless as well for this app. This is just for the casual guitarist who just wants to find a new way to tune their guitar. And I kind of like the way it's turning out. This is still very version 1.0, version alpha, but it's a good start. One thing that I did spend an insane amount of time on was this tags input. So basically I wanted to create a this sort of like chips style menu where you can add and remove tags with this cool animation. And this mostly comes from a UI library called Skeleton UI. And this is a whole library of pre-built components that are just for Svelte and Tailwind. That's another thing I forgot to mention, is that I'm using Tailwind CSS for the whole styling library. And to be more specific, I'm using UnoCSS with the Tailwind plugin. And without getting too bogged down with the technical details, this is a really cool superset of Tailwind that allows you to basically what it does is that it only generates a style sheet based on the styles that you're using, because on its own Tailwind generates a pretty large style sheet, and even when you're not using half of the utilities that it provides, you still have to just deal with the huge exported style sheet. But UnoCSS solved this by generating the only the specific styles you're using on runtime. So it's pretty incredible. And to go back to Skeleton UI, they have this cool component that I'm using called input chips. Basically allows you to create an array of strings, and it makes just working with arrays of strings and forms much easier. However, this modal that I created, or this pop-up, was completely from scratch. All I'm doing is I'm adding a simple event listener that when this text field is active, we show the modal. And you can see there's a cool little fade in transition. And this is another reason why I love Svelte, is that this fade transition is just about 20 characters of code. You can just add on any element that has a if statement, like render this if needed. You can just add this transition fade property and a duration, and that's literally it, and it just works. So I can show you what it looks like if I increase this duration to, this is milliseconds, this would be 5 seconds. See, it's a lot slower now. And just Svelte provides just a lot of really, really neat just tools for developers, and it just makes web development so much more enjoyable. Trying to think if I forgot about anything else. We can dive into the code for a little bit. I showed you earlier the note player service that I have, but show you around at its simplest, everything comes from source/routes/page. This Svelte uses a folder naming convention where every name of every folder is a new route. So for instance, you can go to /about and it takes you to the about page. And right here, I don't know if you noticed, but when you go to a specific tuning, what I do is I append the tuning name to the URL, and in SvelteKit you enclose any path that's dynamic, any slug, inside of brackets like this. So this has a simple route. Basically, this has a server load function that checks for the path name from the URL, and it just fetches the tuning from Prisma. And what I do in addition is I query all related tunings that contain any of the related tags. So you can see this one doesn't have any related tunings, but if you go to one that does, maybe here. So you can see these tunings share the Moody tag, which is pretty cool. What else do we have? One thing that I ran into was that you can see this tuning name has some sharps, and when including this in a URL, natively the server load function doesn't know how to interpret URLs that have multiple hashtags.